And now your host, Random Random Man.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you. All right. How's everyone doing tonight? Okay, no one wants to show how they're feeling. That's okay, it's all good. It is late at night after all. Everyone has to go to bed right after this, am I right? Okay, no one wants to feel like laughing tonight either. Alright, but again, it's all good. So, yesterday, I saw this movie Late Night. It stars Emma Thompson as a late night talk show host. So, she's a British woman, so I thought that was an interesting choice to have her play this late night talk show host. There's this saying, I think, that British people have, where if they don't like something, it ain't their cup of tea. So, for us Americans, if we didn't feel comfortable with her being involved with late night, we would say something like, it ain't right. Really? Really? No one thinks I'm funny? That's it. I quit. What is up, everybody? Random Man here, bringing you my review for Late Night. Now, the plot of this dramedy film basically follows the host of a late night talk show, played by Emma Thompson, who teams up with one of her new staff writers, played by Mindy Kaling, in an attempt to save the show. Going into this movie, I was looking forward to seeing it after hearing all the buzz about it coming out of, say it with me now, the Sundance Film Festival back in January, where it first premiered. Yes, the concept for it seemed pretty interesting to me, and my interest got heightened even more knowing the two main actresses involved with it, them being, of course, Emma Thompson and Mindy Kaling. Emma Thompson, I think, is one of the best actresses working in Hollywood right now. Fun fact, she's the only person to ever win an Oscar both for acting and for writing. She won her acting Oscar for Howard's End and her writing Oscar for Ang Lee's Sense and Sensibility. I mean, she's a legend for more than that, but for that title alone, yeah, that just makes her even more awesome. And Mindy Kaling is another actress I really enjoy as well. Whether it was her time on The Office or her voiceover work in Disney Pixar's Inside Out, I think she is an enjoyable, bright talent. And what also bolstered my interest to see this film even more was that Kaling not only co-stars with Thompson, but she also co-produced and wrote the screenplay for this film. So that got me more intrigued to see what Kaling would do with a screenplay for a concept like this. Starting out with the cast and their performances, we have Emma Thompson in one of the lead roles as Catherine Newberry, the host of her own late night talk show, and I think that Thompson could hardly do any wrong, and here she is terrific. Her performance here is one that can come off as very mean-spirited and very icy cold in nature. Her character actually reminded me quite a bit of Meryl Streep's character Miranda in The Devil Wears Prada. In fact, this movie has a lot of similarities to that film, which I'll mention later, but with that, yeah, you can see the kind of demeanor that Thompson's Catherine has throughout the film, and she is a veteran late night talk show host. She has been on the air for 28 years, so almost 3 decades, but is at risk of being taken off the air. So on the one hand, you can see how her vile nature is negative throughout the film, but on the other hand, you can also see that after a steady 10-year decline and her being threatened to be replaced, how she feels inside and that she has nothing else besides this show. And like I said, Thompson does a tremendous job in this role. Also doing a tremendous job is Mindy Kaling as Molly Patel. Molly is a character who is not very oriented with the late night talk show scene. I mean, she claims to have done a little bit of stand-up work, but that really has her talking into the microphone over the intercom at the chemical plant she used to work at. But also with her being a diversity hire of sorts, her being the only woman and also the only person of color on Newberry's writing team. So she has a lot to prove here. And the screen time that we do get between herself and Thompson, I think is great. The rapport between the two of them, you see both of their heads clashing together, with Molly trying her best to really impress Newberry, but also the way that Newberry feels and how she just lashes out on everyone else, not just including Molly, but the rest of the staff that she is involved with. There are quite a few supporting players here of worthy note, such as John Lithgow as Walter Newberry, the husband to Catherine. I always like seeing him. Amy Ryan plays the head of the network, I believe, who is threatening to kick Catherine off the air. And in this kind of role, I think that she does well here. And then there's the various members of the writing staff under Catherine Newberry's talk show, such as Hugh Dancy, Reed Scott, Max Casella, Dennis O'Hare, Paul Walter Hauser, John Early, and then Ike Barinholtz is in a role where he is an up-and-coming stand-up comedian who is the one who has a particular integration to Catherine Newberry being replaced. So all in all, well, I think the cast here mostly do solid jobs. It is our two leads, Emma Thompson and Mindy Kaling, who both do the most standout work in this film. The writing in this film, once again, with a screenplay done by Mindy Kaling, brings a lot of punchy tenacity to the topic or the all-around main subject matter that this movie is trying to comment on, and that is late-night TV. With Mindy Kaling herself playing a character who is coming from a world that has nothing to do with stand-up comedy and is really more of an enthusiast and fan of late night, suddenly thrusting herself into a world that is unknown to her. It reminded me of The Devil Wears Prada, with that being involved with the fashion industry and Hathaway's character not really being well oriented with that world, and of course Meryl Streep's performance as the legendary Miranda there, and her own very sinister attitude across that movie, which this movie, having a bunch of parallels to that film, did make me very engaged by it from the start. I think Kaling did a pretty outstanding job with this screenplay, and again being punchy, but also paralleling to not just The Devil Wears Prada, for that comparison lingering on in my head as I watched this film, but also with real life in this movie being a pretty obvious satire of the industry that it is trying to comment on, but also in the way of it being a comedy or a dramedy, as I described earlier, as this movie does have quite a bit of comedic and dramatic elements in there, mixing together to what I think was a well-balanced approach and execution for parlaying a lot of laughs onto us, which Kaling does bring with her script, but also with the drama in the way this movie is directed. Speaking of the director, the film is helmed by Nisha Ganatra, and I think that the way she did focus scenes in how the dialogue played out and all around the character interactions in getting to the very core of what late night TV is, or at least in the way it works in the context of this movie, it made it very entertaining in my opinion. I didn't think that this movie hitched up in too many areas. The way it flowed, it ran at about an hour and 40 minutes, which I thought was just about the pitch perfect running time for this film, and just the way it moved in getting through some of the moments, like with the writing team and Newberry herself trying to rejuvenate her image, such as getting her on social media, which she was never a part of, even with it emerging in its early days. Also her parlaying her emotions onto her guests or her audience as a whole. Really, the whole reinvention of Catherine Newberry as a 21st century late night talk show host was definitely the most engaging part of the film. It also, as I said, brought a lot of timeliness and relevancy to this topic being approached not just by Kaling, but the rest of the filmmakers in front of and behind the camera, to where it isn't something that is trying to preach to us in the most hardened fashion. The movie that I would compare this film to that has also come out recently is Long Shot, which, by the way, I recently got free merch for, including the sunglasses, this windbreaker, which looks like the one that Seth Rogen and Charlize Theron's characters wore in that film, and this poster for the film. Yeah, pretty awesome. Shout out to the marketing team of that movie for all this swag. But anyway, I would compare Late Night to something like Long Shot, as they are both comedies of sorts that do have an angle of commentary to their respective subject matters. Long Shot is more oriented with the political world, and Late Night, again, and of course, judging from its title, it is centered on the late night TV sphere. The biggest differences between both of those films are that there aren't romantic angles with Late Night, aside from something that does happen later on in the film, which I will mention in a bit, and Long Shot, that is a romantic comedy, with Late Night also veering more towards the dramatic side. Going into some of this film's technical merits, this movie is pretty standardly shot, I would say. This director's background is mainly in TV, and you can tell with a lot of the framing and overall design of this movie from a visual standpoint, which I didn't think was bad at all. It did look like it did the job for what this movie was trying to do. The production and costume designs I also thought were very strong. The look of the actual late night show did look like something that I would see on late night TV during the week. And then I liked all the outfits that Emma Thompson's Catherine Newberry wore. All her pantsuits looks pretty fashionable to me, even though I'm no fashionista. And as I said, this movie all ran along together very briskly. And the issues I would say I have with this film really don't derail it in any major sense, yet they do have to do with the movie running at a brisk pace, as I just mentioned, but also in a bit of a predictable sense as well. When a new plot element enters about 2/3 of the way through, in between the second and third acts, this movie does bring on more of its commentary that does make it pretty relevant to today. And with all of the stuff that has been revealed of behind the scenes actions in Hollywood, the movie tries to put that in, and it does make it a lot more interesting to see where this movie does end up. It's something that I do have to commend the script for in going for it and being something different at first. But then the movie does continue on with its predictable nature, and it doesn't end at all badly. It ends, in my opinion, in a way a movie like this would be expected to end, but I wished that this movie stuck to its guns a little harder in that moment. It just would have made for something more for us, the audience, to ponder about after the movie has ended. But other than that, I think that this is a really enjoyable dramedy. It is the performances from Emma Thompson and Mindy Kaling, Mindy Kaling's own script, and the other elements of this film in the way it flows, bringing on the laughs, bringing on some hard-hitting drama, and just how it is as a satire on its core subject. It all comes together for a film that I think is worth watching on all of its pros alone. This movie just had its nationwide expansion across the US, and if you're in the mood for a dramedy with a lot of punchiness and paralleling nature with it, along with two very superb leading performances from two actresses at the top of their game, then I definitely recommend Late Night. My final verdict: for late night is 4 out of 5 stars. Thank you all, as always, for watching. Be sure to like this video, comment on what you thought of late night. Social media links in the description. Subscribe to my channel for more, and I'll catch you on the next movie review.